LeBron James' son goes into cardiac arrest at USC basketball practice. Veterans report to Chargers camp today. So we'll take a look at some of the deeper questions that the Bolts face. And Jordan Addison makes his bid for PETA's Man of the Year. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city of the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. So it is July 25th, 2023, and it happened again. We've added another new subscriber to the Angeleno Familia. Thank you for getting in on the ground floor. We've got tons to talk about today. And if you like being in the know about LA sports, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. I like hearing from you guys. I try to reach out. Now, before we go through the news and the notes, a look at the scoreboard. Toronto 6, Dodgers 3 in 11 innings. Hard for me to get worked up about a loss when it takes that deep into the bullpen. It's 11 innings, guys. Jason Hayward hit a home run. Max Muncy hit his 25th for the Dodgers in the loss. Meanwhile, today, Toronto and the Dodgers face off again at 7. That's Julio Urias, 7-6 with a 5.02 ERA. Chris Bassett is 10-5 with a 3.92 ERA. Indiana is in town to play the Sparks at 7. The Sparks are on an 8-game losing streak. This is the first of a 4-game homestand, however, to try to save their WNBA season. USC freshman Bronny James, the eldest son of Lakers superstar LeBron James, was hospitalized Monday. He went into cardiac arrest and collapsed during USC's basketball practice. Now, he was placed in the ICU. This would be Bronny, who is 18, I might add. He's now in stable condition. This is TMZ's report. They first got the story out. Now, there was a statement that was released that reported how James, quote, medical staff was able to treat Bronny and take him to the hospital, unquote. And LeBron James and his wife, they issued their gratitude and all this other stuff. James is a 4-star recruit. He is one of the primary pieces of USC's top 5 incoming recruiting class. We've been hyping the Trojans class. Normally, it's UCLA that makes all the big news in terms of basketball recruiting. USC punked them this year. So this was supposed to be a big bleeping deal. James is the number 27 overall player in the high school class of 2023. He is the second highest ranked signee of USC's 4-person recruiting class. But I have to add something on my own that hopefully doesn't come across as conspiratorial. I don't want to deal in gossip here. So this is what I'm about to say is not gossip, but hear me out. This is where LeBron James should not be issuing statements about gratitude. Yeah, he should be grateful his son's alive, of course. But this is where LeBron James has to be pounding on the door of Coach Andy Enfield with all his might and demand answers. LeBron James has to act a little insane. And this because this is his son. And why should he act insane? Because Bronny James's collapse is the second USC player in as many years to suffer cardiac arrest with the program while he was practicing with the Trojans. Center Vince Iwuchukwu suffered cardiac arrest last summer during a practice. Oh, it was an informal one, but who cares? It was cardiac arrest. So Iwuchukwu recovers. He was cleared to play in January. He played in 14 games. But one player, if it was just Iwuchukwu, maybe you write that off as a fluke. 2 players, one in consecutive years. I'm sorry. Besides that, Bronny James's dad, LeBron, is a health nut. The Calm app, the thing that you can download on your phone, LeBron James is huge into that thing. He was one of the guys who was one of their primary investors, for Pete's sakes. He is super into his health. He teaches his Lakers teammates how to maintain their bodies through the course of the regular season. So now I'm supposed to believe that just all of a sudden, Bronny James's heart isn't nearly as strong as his father's? Is it nearly as healthy as his father's? No, I find that very hard to believe. And I'm sorry to say that kind of stuff. But for those of you who have watched this program for a long time, you heard me say this when Iwuchukwu went down. I'm a former newspaper reporter. I was on press row the night that Hank Gathers died. I wasn't at Loyola Marymount. I was at the Forum when the Lakers were playing the Minnesota Timberwolves. Hank Gathers' friend, Pooh Richardson, played for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I had to interview that poor guy after he found out his friend died from cardiac arrest. We don't need people collapsing and nearly dying on the USC basketball court. So while the details right now are very, very minimal, while we don't know necessarily how Bronny James's heart went all wacko, unfortunately, it's time where USC basketball has to answer some very uncomfortable questions. Once is a fluke, twice is a pattern when it comes to teenagers getting heart attacks. Veterans report to Chargers training camp today. The first practice is going to be held tomorrow. And camp, it's not as important, obviously, as the regular season, but we're at least about to get some answers to some very pressing needs for the Bolts. We have only scratched the surface when we have discussed the Chargers and their needs going into the season. Here is a lesser considered question. Is cornerback J.C. Jackson really on track to play at the start of the season because he blasted out his patellar tendon midway through 2022? And by the way, if Jackson is as good to go as he claims he will be, who gets squeezed out? Look, the Bolts often play in nickel coverage. 5 defensive backs. We know that Derwin James has a job. So does Asante Samuel. So does Alohi Gilman. But if Jackson regains his form, does it put pressure on second-year defensive back Jasir Taylor to keep a consistent gig? Or does it really put the screws to safety JT Woods? They were both rookies last year. Taylor was a 6th-round pick. The Chargers were really impressed with him by the end of the year. Woods, on the other hand, was taken in the 3rd round, and they're not sure he could tackle. So that is a pressing question. I'm also interested to see if the defensive line is going to include defensive lineman Otitio Ogbonia, a second-year player out of UCLA. The middle of the Chargers' defensive line was supposed to absorb blocks so that the linebackers could rush up and make plays on opposing running backs. Without Ogbonia, without Austin Johnson, teams just trampled the Bolts. They just ran him into the ground. I'm also wondering if Austin Eckler is digging his own grave with all of this complaining about his pay. You say Isaiah Spiller goes nuts in the preseason. Would that mean that the Chargers are even more willing to let Eckler walk at the end of the year? Or would the Chargers consider trading Eckler midway through the season? CBS, by the way, they love perimeter wide receiver Quentin Johnson. They describe him as an agitated gazelle in the open field, and they are naming him to their preseason all-rookie team. They say his skill set is unlike any other player on the Bolts roster. They also placed linebacker Deion Henley on this theoretical first team of all rookies. They say he glides to the ball like his safety. Shut up and play ball. That is a complaint that you hear from people when athletes talk politics, right? Now, honestly, I don't care if athletes talk politics. I think it's what athletes should do, though, when facing the cops, is shut up and play ball. For Pete's sake, the cops read you your Miranda rights. Take advantage of it. Remain silent. But no, former USC wide receiver Jordan Addison claimed that the reason he was driving 140 miles at 3 a.m. a couple of weeks ago was because his dog was having an emergency at home. His dog. I love USC. We were told Addison was smart when he went to USC, right? But even PETA doesn't buy this story. You were notified of a dog emergency at 3 a.m, so you drove 140 miles an hour. What did you do? You mean to tell me that you celebrated your contract with the Minnesota Vikings by buying a sports car and a life alert for your dog? Really? Is that the story I'm hearing? Addison was driving 85 miles an hour faster than the speed limit. 85. You know, somewhere in Nevada, in a Nevada prison cell, Henry Ruggs is thinking, damn it, why didn't I use the sick dog excuse? What's wrong with me? Why didn't I use the sick dog excuse? Now look, I am not Mr. The cops are always right guy, right? My friends and I, we used to call the cops the fun boys, because whenever you were having a lot of fun, the fun boys would always show up, right? More than once, I have been escorted to the back of a squad car. So please do not excuse me as like a host of a Fox News program trying to tell you how the cops are always right. I know cops are as human as anybody else, prone to being mistake prone to possibly getting corrupted. It can happen. Totally get it. But do you know what is an effective strategy when dealing with the cops? Not telling them about a sick dog. Your third grade teacher did not fall for that line, and neither will the guy with the taser, a nightstick, and a badge. Jordan Addison's sick dog. All of this time, we've been told that UCLA was a reluctant partner with USC on the move to the Big Ten in 2024. You know, that's what you would hear from UCLA. Golly gee, we would just love to stay in the Pac-12, but man, did we run the credit card up during the COVID lockdowns? We were over $100 billion in debt at one point. You know, we needed cash. We just can't afford to take out the second mortgage on Pauley Pavilion. Turns out that UCLA football is all in on moving to the Big Ten. This is according to Coach Chip Kelly. Quote, "You're playing on CBS, NBC, and Fox. You're not going to play a game later than 8 o'clock on the East Coast because of the time slots the Big Ten has." This is what Kelly told Bruin Report Online. Quote, "So their exposure to be shown to more of the country is a positive. I think the kids in California are excited about playing in that. You get to play at a Michigan or at a Penn State or at an Ohio State or a Wisconsin," unquote. So yeah, yet another benefit to the two schools transferring to the Big Ten. I do wonder what it means for the average Bruin fan, though, because I have a few friends, they love UCLA. They think USC is a school for rich brats. But in a survey of the most expensive game days in college football, UCLA is ranked the 8th most expensive. Now, this is according to 24/7 Sports. And to be honest with you, I don't know what went into making these rankings. But according to them, it costs $234 to catch a game at the Rose Bowl. I'm not sure I agree with it. I didn't spend that much when I went to the Rose Bowl to see El Tráfico earlier in the month, so I'm a little skeptical. We can add a new name to the list of the players that the Dodgers are allegedly interested in before the trade deadline. We re-debuted this alleged list of Dodger interest to mock scribes who just throw every baseball player out there and connect them with the Dodgers because they don't have actual sources, so they just pull names out of their rear. But I will say this, there is a source to this one. According to ESPN, Cardinals third baseman Nolan Arenado would reportedly waive his no-trade clause if it meant coming to the Dodgers. That brings that list all the way up to 36 players. Now, there are two names on that list that we can presumably cross off. One is Shohei Ohtani, and oddly, the other is Lance Lynn of Chicago. I've read 3 scribes who I trust. They're claiming that the Angels believe that they are in the running for a wild card spot. Therefore, why trade Ohtani? Okay. Meanwhile, for Lance Lynn, his ERA is horrifying, but he too has a no-trade clause. Ineffective pitcher plus no trade clause. Why is he on that list? The scribes won't tell you. They just say he is. The year-long wait to determine the fate of LAFC midfielder Jose Cifuentes is almost over. The Athletic, one of the few soccer news sources that I have any faith in, is reporting that Glasgow Rangers are reaching deep into their kilts to pay LAFC for the midfielder. Rangers, they were to acquire him at the end of his MLS contract this year, but apparently they want to pony up for him right now. Now, we reported this story last week. I was sitting there saying I don't have enough sources to where I truly rely on this story or believe it. Now I do. The 24-year-old Ecuadorian scored 7 goals and then added 8 assists during the Black and Gold's run to MLS Cup last year. Since then, LAFC has been in a stunning state of flux. Since last year, the franchise has moved on from 7 players, not counting Cifuentes. This also included the retired Gareth Bale. It also included Chicho Arango, who eventually wound up with Real Salt Lake. The team has weathered much of this change, but now that midfield is super duper thin. Sheets of paper are as thick as Lizzo by comparison to how thin the LAFC midfield is right now. And I would argue that Cifuentes is the most valuable of the bunch. It is true that LAFC do not have a match to play for a little while, but right now might be the time to finally use that designated player spot that they've been holding on to so long. Just saying. There was a super weird story before MLS season began that claimed Ricky Puig was bored being in LA. It was one of those stories that you just knew was a flaming bag of dog turd. Puig created a clip where he mocked the idea of being bored in LA, but there's a little more to it than that. Puig claims that his former club, FC Barcelona, benched him not only from matches, but from training. Quote, I believe I was not treated fairly when I came back to training in preseason last summer when the club did not let me train with them. That's what really annoyed me during my last year there. I had the LA Galaxy option quite advanced, and I wanted to move abroad, change my life, and go to the other side of the world, he told The Athletic. So Puig is actually happy with the LA Galaxy. The Galaxy, by the way, were supposed to play CONCACAF Champions League winners Leon tonight at Dignity Health Sports Park. That Leagues Cup game has been rescheduled for Wednesday. We mentioned an all-rookie team for CBS earlier. Defensive lineman Kobe Turner was listed as an honorable mention among Rams rookies. The Scribe likes how Turner beats blocks quickly and is difficult to pin down. Getting mentored by Aaron Donald might also be a bit of a positive. Trey Tomlinson earned a modicum of respect. He was named honorable mention for CBS's all-rookie team as a slot corner. The writer predicts Tomlinson will make an impact because he makes a lot of pass breakups and interceptions, and that's not by accident. CBS also asked 3 burning questions yesterday for the AFC West teams, and that obviously included the Chargers. The questions for the Rams, I wouldn't say they're burning. It's more along of not burning, but having that one friend who knows how to light up his farts. I mean, it's good for a laugh, but it doesn't exactly lead to epiphanies. You know what I mean? The questions were, can Matthew Stafford bounce back? Oh, who's replacing Jalen Ramsey? But the only question that matters is, can the draft picks actually play? They think of 4 of the 14 draft picks that probably can play. We mentioned Turner and Tomlinson. They added guard Steve Avila and edge rusher Byron Young. Now, if they all 4 can perform, that's an okay draft. But you have to go better than 4 for 14. You just have to. That is the key to this remodel that the Rams have been talking about since the end of last year. Former starting tackle Bobby Evans, meanwhile, is signed with Minnesota. He was a 3rd-round pick in 2019. LA waived him on New Year's Eve last year. Now, a couple of weeks ago, final story, I believe, we detailed a breakdown of the Lakers' depth chart after free agency and a draft from The Athletic, a site that I put a lot of trust in. I don't necessarily trust the website Fansided. It's like a poor man's Bleacher Report. And when I say poor man, I'm talking about not even having any food stamps poor. But their breakdown of the Lakers' depth chart had a difference that I wanted to mention. Jared Vanderbilt over Rui Hachimura at power forward. It may sound like semantics, but the Scribe posits that Vanderbilt's defense would be more of what Darvin Ham wants. Hachimura would be an elite 6-man because he comes off the bench and could score. You switch the 2, you don't get the same impact. You get less production from your defense and less defense. You get less production from the defense on the second team, less offense on the first team. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Talk to me about what USC should do about its players having cardiac arrest during basketball practice. Tell me what questions you want the Chargers to answer. And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos, We're talking LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.